Hall of Fame, Joshua. This is Joshua.
Oh, hey.
Joshua was the leader of the Israelites, who God used to bring his people to the Promised Land.
Yeah, let's do it.
When God told Joshua it was time to take the Promised Land, Joshua sent spies into the city of Jericho. While those spies were in Jericho,
Come on!
they were protected by a woman named Rahab. The spies promised to spare Rahab and her family when they took back the land.
Yay!
And she hung a scarlet cord from her window to remind them of their promise.
See you soon!
Now the Israelites had crossed the Jordan and were camped near the town of Jericho.
Hey, hello.
One day, Joshua looked up,
Huh?
and there was a man standing before him.
Hello.
The man said, "I am the commander of the army of the Lord." Joshua asked what the man wanted to tell him, and the Lord said he wanted Joshua to take the city of Jericho,
All right.
but that Joshua needed to follow his instructions exactly.
You got it.
Jericho was shut for fear of the Israelites.
Anyone home? Yeah, well.
No one came out and no one came in. So the Lord told Joshua to gather his soldiers and march around the city for 6 days.
Mary.
The priests were to take the Ark of the Covenant, and 7 priests were to go in front of it, blowing a ram's horn. On the 7th day, they were to march around the city 7 times and blow the horn. Then all the people of Israel were to give a great shout,
Then what?
and then the city walls would fall.
Whoa! Yeah, let's do it.
So Joshua said, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." And the people did shout. And the walls did fall.
Let's go!
The Israelites overtook the city of Jericho as God had commanded.
Rahab.
They remembered Rahab because of her faithfulness. Joshua was faithful in carrying out God's commands, and the Israelites took many other cities as God told them they would.
Oh, nice.
For God will never fail to fulfill his promises. So the Israelites came to live in the land that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, Israel, Joseph, and Moses many years ago.
Has anyone ever asked you to do something that just seemed straight up crazy, but you did it anyway? Like, has someone asked you to climb up a 50-foot tree or go eat at a bizarre restaurant with them? It's kind of like how God told Joshua and his army to march around a city so that the walls of Jericho would fall down. God hasn't asked me or you to do something like that before, but I know he has asked and commanded us to do things that can seem a little crazy, weird, or maybe a little uncomfortable. God told Joshua to march around the city so that his promise to the Israelites could be fulfilled. But the only way that could happen would be if Joshua obeyed. And thankfully, he did. God commands us to love one another so that his promise of love can be known. And no one would know what God's love is like if we don't obey God and love others. The Bible even tells us that Jesus says, "By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." So, what Jesus is saying is that by obeying him and loving people, people will know that you follow God. And because of that, others might want to begin to follow God too. But again, this will only happen if you choose to obey God and do what he commands you to do. Yeah, it may be a little crazy or weird to be nice to the mean kids at school, or it may be a little uncomfortable to do the right thing, even though your friends are doing a totally different thing. And obeying God can be a little difficult at times because we don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is that God will always do good. And we should know that obeying God is worth it, no matter how weird or uncomfortable it may be. We should remember that when we obey God, then we are helping God do his work and he is fulfilling his promises to the people around you. Just like Joshua obeyed God by marching around the city of Jericho, we should also obey God by doing everything He asks us to do, no matter how crazy it seems.